Hi, and welcome to Susty Talks, which is a community-centered podcast that sparks genuine conversations about ethical fashion, sustainable change, and intersectional solutions. And I really hope this online space just drives positive change and empowers action, making sustainability more accessible and relevant to everyone. This is a self-funded initiative. I fund it with my eBay, so if you want to support that, link will be in the description. And then I also do Mexican artisanal collections, which they're coming out probably next year, 2025, so look forward to that. And I basically just upcycle pieces, and I aim to inspire stories that challenge the mainstream narratives in the fashion industry. But yeah, I'm super cold today. It is December 3rd and it's been like 10 degrees out, so if I sound a bit weird, I just usually struggle to adapt to the weather. I get really sickly. I'm technically not sick. I just feel like I'm gonna get sick, if that makes sense. I don't know if that happens to anyone else. And my voice just sounds weird today. It's shaky and just deeper than normal. Also, for audio listeners, I am using a different mic. The last two podcasts have been rough just because I couldn't really figure out the microphone. I bought it 2 years ago, can't return it, but I'm using this other one. It's on a Wet n Wild eyeliner. It's a very interesting mic situation. I've been such a fan of Wet n Wild all my life. I've been using them since I was 16. Not sponsored, but just want to mention cheap makeup that's good. It's getting rarer and rarer and rarer to find. But yeah, that's just an afterthought. But for today's podcast, we're gonna get into living with nuns after college. Yeah, you heard right. I lived with nuns. Sounds crazier now that I say it. But I did live with nuns after college, and I did experience a lot of activism burnout throughout the years. I'm 27 now, so I've been on the track records of a lot of different paths. So I'm going to talk about my path into activism and how it affected me, and then going to talk about living wages. They're non-existent, basically, and then touching on ethical fashion. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a tangent, but that's kind of my life. It's never been straightforward. I've always been trying to figure things out constantly. I feel like I've had a very chaotic life, especially because for the past 5 years, I've been volunteering 15 to 30 hours a week. Yeah, 15 to 30 hours a week. It sounds, again, crazy, but that's just the nature of my life. I've been volunteering all these hours since I was 22, so basically right when I graduated. But yeah, this podcast is going to be super chatty. It's going to be super filled with tea on my personal life, so feel free to play this casually in the background. I do ramble a lot, and I just need a vent about these experiences, and hopefully it resonates with someone. I do want to take us back to when I was in high school. I used to actually help at a local homeless shelter, and it was my first experience with volunteering, with helping, being exposed to social issues. Even though I was raised in a frontline community, I didn't really understand what I was looking at. I was these people really need my help, so let me just go do it. And I didn't really think much of it. My friend just invited me through a club in high school, and I went a couple hours here and there. But it was only until I went to college that I really started to think more about helping people, of having some sort of philosophy behind it. I had joined my ministry center in my college to really grow in my Catholicism. I'm no longer Catholic, but when I was in my early 20s, I was I really need to learn how to be a good Catholic. And so that got me involved in their community outreach efforts. Feeding the homeless in Chicago, which is one of their programs. They also had this other outreach program where they would take us, the college kids, to the local food pantry and help prep the meals for the local community that was next to our school. So I tried to help as much as I could. I tried doing as much as I could. I was double majoring. I was working 3 different jobs. So I was working like 20-25 hours a week, and I was taking all the classes, and I was involved in other clubs. So yeah, I always just try to do what I felt like I could manage. If I had some time, I would go. But my, I guess, thought process for much of that was, well, if I can do it, then I should do it. So like if I had the time, I should use that time to go help people. I should use that time to go feed people, stuff like that. And I thought it would help me become a better Catholic. Did it? I don't know, because I'm no longer Catholic, but that's not the point. But after graduation, I really started grappling with like, what am I supposed to do with my time? Like, I really want to help people. I did study business, I did study fashion, but I ended up doing a year of service. If you don't know what that is, it's basically an intentional time, usually for a year, when you help a community in need. And I did this with an organization that's now defunct called DVUSA, which is short for Dominican Volunteers USA. It's like a religious ordinance of Catholicism. And basically these volunteers respond to the needs of the poor and marginalized. Now, the biggest irony is I was poor and marginalized, but I didn't really see myself as that. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go help other people that are worse off than me. And for more context of DVUSA, it was established a long time ago, like in the early 2000s, by several congregations and provinces of like sisters and friars. And so fresh out of college, I like moved to Chicago because that's where I decided to be placed. And I go and I live with a nun. Yeah. I was 22, okay, and I kind of knew what I was getting into, but I didn't really know what I was getting into. I had applied back in March when I was still in my last semester of senior year of college, and I was accepted into the program in May, so 2 months afterwards, and it was not competitive. No one really goes that route, so like they didn't have a lot of applicants, so they kind of almost accepted anyone that applied, basically. But they made it feel official, even though looking back later on, I'm like, they needed me more than I needed them, basically. Anyways, but I became a volunteer coordinator for St. James Food Pantry, which is next to the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. But I could have chosen a lot of different programs in different states, but I had decided to stay in Chicago very intentionally. I was super close to the friends that I had made in college, or at least that's what I thought. But something happened that kind of ruined everything. So I don't know how you've experienced friend groups. I've always had trouble with them, but in my college group experience, I thought we were going to be friends forever, okay? That's just a disclaimer. I was really willing to stay in Chicago, even though I did have the sense of urgency to move somewhere else. I was like, I wanna like maintain a relationship, so I might as well stay here. But I ended up becoming really close with one of my guy friends, but he was simply a friend. But he ended up wanting to be more, okay? And I just did not feel the same way. So after multiple occurrences of continuously saying no, it just got around to my friend group because he was asking advice of what to do. And I was like, why does he keep trying? And eventually things just spread to the entire friend group. It was not anything private anymore. It just became a whole drama. And one time we were all in the group chat texting about plans, about things. I don't really remember what. But my friend's boyfriend, who was in the chat, who was technically part of the friend group because he was the boyfriend of my friend, was always trying to be weird and mean. And I know for sure he was being purposeful about it. But when I was like 22, I was like, oh, he's like fine. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just like confused. But no, looking back at it now, he was mean. He was cruel. And I've always had a streak of being defensive. So this day, he was just sending a string of mean, very crude messages about me rejecting the other guy, and I just blasted him. I was like, hey, like, leave me alone, like, this is none of your business, like, we've figured things out. Like, you don't need to talk about it. Like, you don't need to convince me to date him. But basically, the boyfriend was hell-bent on having me date my friend, the other friend. And I was like, no, like, we've talked about this. Like, he understands that I don't feel the same way. But yeah, I eventually had to like pause the text because they were just like going back and forth. We were basically fighting, and I was like, no, like, I can't do this anymore. So like, shut off my phone. And I was like, what is this guy doing? I got really mad. And then the girlfriend was like excusing all the actions, being like, why are you saying these things? Why are you being so mean? Like, everyone's being mean to me. I was like, what is happening? Okay. But I eventually left the group chat. I basically lost my friends from this weird situation. Like, no one reached out to me. No one wanted to talk to me. No one tried to like foster the friendship after this whole altercation. So it wasn't technically my fault. But I just like clearly remember sitting in an empty room in Chicago in this place where the Nuns at, okay? And I felt so alone. Like, just try to visualize it. It was cold. The whole reason I had stayed in Chicago was destroyed within this weird fight via a group chat that took like an hour or so to happen. I have my friend that I thought was really close to me say, why are you being so mean to me? As I was defending myself against her boyfriend and his allegations. It was September. It was a month into my program as a volunteer coordinator. And like, everything seemed to disintegrate right there in front of my eyes. So I basically had a breakdown that night. I was like, why am I in this program? Why am I in Chicago? Like, why did I think these people are my friends? It was a really tough day. Yeah, the thing that the program also didn't explain is that doing this sort of work is very hard emotionally and also like physically. Like, you need friends. Like, you need community to keep going. You need motivation somewhere. Because for context, I literally would get up every day at 5:30 in the morning, and I would leave at 6:30 to walk alone to the train. And I was in a sketchy area, and I was like having an anxiety attack every morning as I walked these 20 minutes to the train. And then I would wait for the train, just freezing my butt off, and then I would probably get around to the school, because the train dropped me off to IIT. I would get there around 7:30, and I'd have to walk through the entire campus, trying not to have an existential crisis because I've always wanted to get more schooling, like an MBA. And then I would hang out there. I would actually go into IIT and just hang out for like 30 minutes because work would start at 8. And then work ended around like 5 because I had an hour break or so. And then with the train and all the waiting times and walking times, whatever, I'd get to the apartment at 6:20. So it was a trike. I didn't have a car. Well, I technically did have a car back at home, but I didn't have a driver's license. That's a whole other story. It took me so long to get my driver's license, but I just did not have my driver's license. Anyway, so it was like 6:20 once I got back to the apartment, and I would literally have 40 minutes to relax before I had to attend the mandatory 7 p.m. dinner with my roommates. I had like 2 other roommates that were around my age that were in different programs in Chicago. Sometimes I would cook the dinner. Sometimes I wouldn't. So sometimes I had to like cook at 6:20. Like, as soon as I got into the apartment, I had to like cook. Some days when I was not cooking, I could relax. So it just depended. And then we would also have dinner with the nun. She loved quality time, which I'm not saying is bad. It's just we still had to act social. We had to act proper, like professional, especially with someone from a different era. She was like 70 years old, again, a nun. So she was expecting, I guess, like normal conversations. Like, you wouldn't talk about how much you needed to vape that day. I don't vape, but that was just an example. And then we would finish dinner around 8 p.m., but we would always clean up afterwards, all of us together. And then depending on how fast we cleaned up the kitchen, washed the dishes, we had to do it then, right after dinner, we would then pray. also mandatory. So you kind of see like what I'm saying. There's a lot of structure, and sometimes you didn't even have a minute to relax, depending or not if you had to cook. Okay, are you following? I bet you're thinking, wow, that's a lot. But all of this to say, we prayed at 8 and then we ended by 9. So let's say it was a typical day. I've been up since 5:30. Let's say I had to cook dinner. I've been cooking since 6:20 since I've arrived. And then my day ends at 9 p.m. But like I said, the nun that we lived with loved quality time. She loved watching shows and movies specifically. So sometimes she would convince us to watch a movie or a TV show with her. Now we're living with her. We want to be on a good page with her. So sometimes I would watch something, sometimes I wouldn't. It just depended on what the vibe was for me. Sometimes I just could not socialize anymore. Sometimes my day would end at 10. Normally it did. So I literally had a full-time job and I had to socialize with all these other people until 10 p.m. So I didn't really have a personal life, okay? And mind you, it was also my first full-time job ever. And that just also reflects that I wouldn't have time or space for a boyfriend either in this circumstance. Like, when would he come over? When would we hang out? Like, we also had to do stuff on Saturday and Sundays. Like, we had to go to church on Sundays. And Saturdays, the nun liked to be joined to get groceries. And I would always get myself out of that situation because I just was not having it. Or else I'd be working like 7 days a week. And I haven't mentioned that they didn't even pay us minimum wage. They didn't. They only paid us $300, I believe, to $500. But I can't remember exactly, but I think it was $300 as a stipend a month for our efforts. Full-time work. And this is real work too. It wasn't like you could like leave and go and do whatever. Like, I was a volunteer coordinator for a food pantry. Like, people saw me with this title at work. They thought I was being paid. Like, other staff members would treat me as an equal. I was there from like 8 to 5 every day, Monday through Friday. And I was only paid $300. And I still had to do all the other stuff until 10. Okay? And I was poor. And I didn't have resources. I just cannot fathom how I ever agreed to this. Because a typical role like this, beginner wage, would be like 30 to 40K a year, easily. Maybe 20K if the place is super underfunded, but it'd probably end up being like a part-time job if you're earning that little. To put it into context, within a whole year, I would only have made $3,600 for working full time. I didn't make it a full year, and I'll get into that, but it's a lot of responsibility to do this while still following rules from a nun. Like, I'm someone that's very spontaneous. I hate rules. I hate work, basically, but I was in a way grappling with how to be grateful and thankful for the opportunity, because we weren't paying bills. Like, we weren't paying the rent, but they didn't pay the train. Like, we had to pay that. So it kind of was something I resented because those trains are expensive. If you've ever been to Chicago, each train ride costs you $250, and I needed to take 2 of them every day. But sometimes I would take another additional one just in case I wanted to go to like the library or somewhere else. It was like 2 to 3 a day. So $250 times 3 is $7.50 a day. Times that by 5, that's around like 30 something dollars. That's just rounded up to $34 a week. In a month, that's $120. And if I'm only paid like $300, that's a third of my wage, basically. So technically I was only being paid like $200 or less than $200 for my efforts. Okay. Yeah. So it didn't last long. Surprise, surprise. So in October, when I stepped away, which was literally 3 months into the program, I quit. I also was not eating. I was very frustrated. Again, I had no friends. I had no fun. There was too many rules. And the only option was to really move back home. It was a quick decision. I was like, I need to go. Like, I'm not giving 2 weeks. I'm not gonna negotiate. And they even tried to tell me that I was in a contract, which I was, but I told them, hey, like, my health is really bad. My mental health is ruined by this. Like, I'm struggling with like personal matters. I'm struggling with the program itself. Within the whole process of these whole 3 months, I hadn't even made $600. And I vividly remember my friend driving me back home from Chicago to my suburb near it. And she was like scolding me the whole time that I had quit. And I was explaining to her, like, it's not really worth your efforts if you're only being paid technically $200 a month. Like, who's going to live off of this? And I really did want to be a good Catholic. Like, I wanted to be a good person, but I was struggling to survive. Like, I have $40,000 in student loans. Like, how would I even justify that wage given the context I was in? And if I wanted to help like the poor and marginalized, like, I had to help myself because I was the poor and marginalized. But she didn't really understand. She was saying like I should have helped more, like I should have withstood it. Like, that's the reason why the programs exist, to test your faith, to like push yourself, to really be present and do things that are hard. And I was like, I need to be present for myself. Like, I need to take care of myself first versus anything else. And I was really affected by the loss of my friend group. That was the whole reason why I was there in the first place, right? But yeah, that was just a really tough moment of explaining that to her. She didn't get it, but I didn't really care. I was like, thank you for the ride, but I don't think we're friends either too. So I lost another friend because I left this program. But that just kind of shows you the people I was around. So I didn't really feel like I lost a friend. I just felt like I had wasted my time on someone that I thought was a friend. But also, I didn't really get into another reason why I had decided to be in the program. It was because I've always wanted to get my MBA. Again, I studied business and I always had the plan of going back to school. So when I was walking through IIT, I was like, dang, like I really wish I was studying here versus like volunteering. And if you know anything though about volunteer programs, DVUSA had this aspect where if you completed 1 year of a volunteer program, you would then become eligible for free schooling in affiliated schools. And DVUSA is all across the nation, so I could have easily have found a program. But the one that I gravitated the most to and closest to where I wanted to stay was getting my MBA in Wisconsin and ideally start the August 2020 fall semester. But that didn't work out because when I left the program, I technically left my dreams of becoming eligible for free school to get my MBA. Yeah, and when I left the program, I really didn't have a plan. So I was just looking for work, and then 2 weeks in, luckily enough, I found an opening at my local Catholic charities. I had volunteered there during my summers when I was in college. I even like faked that I needed to do community service so that they could give me a lot of hours because they were so suspicious when I was like, hey, I want to volunteer like 50 hours this summer, and they're like, why? And I was like, oh, I have to do it so I can graduate. So I basically lied and got myself to volunteer a lot of hours so that they could have me. But it worked out because they gave me a job in the exact same thing that I had like interned for free. I basically oversaw the donation center that they had, but 4 months into the job, I was really not enjoying it. It was around January 2021 and I was bored. Like, I feel like it's not really talked about, but when you're young and you're experiencing your first full-time work, you have this sense of like community still in you. Like in college, you're around people your same age, you're excited about the future, excited to fulfill your dreams and things, but the job market and jobs are so different from like, you know, being with your friends all day, going to classes, the hustle and bustle of different things. Like, I went from this beautiful experience of college to like being stuck in the same place the whole day with like 2 very mean people. My team was not that exciting nor interesting. They didn't really talk to me. They ignored me for some reason, even though I was their manager, and I would try to talk to them, but they didn't want to talk to me. And it really annoyed me because I was like, I want to connect with them. Like, I'm there with them the whole day. But they were low-key traumatized from their past manager, and they blamed it on me. So it was really draining, and psychologically I was like, why are you blaming me for the things that another manager did? So I was like really drained. I felt like nothing was working out. I was overworked, which is like common in nonprofit work. Like, they expect you to work so many hours. I literally would have to drag in my little brother and my older brother and my mom to help me get everything done. And they're like, don't they have workers? I'm like, I am the worker. And they're expecting me to do like 3 to 4 different jobs. So yeah, I'm not gonna get into that. But mind you, I was the donation center coordinator at Catholic Charities, and they only paid me $16 an hour. And I was working like 9 hours or 10 hours every day, but they could only pay me 8 hours a day, and I wasn't on salary. Like, it was hourly. So they wanted me to volunteer. And I still had to call in 3 other people to help me, like, consistently every other day to help me. Like, what? Like, what? I just, okay. Anyways, so 2 months pass, and I'm, like, really struggling with this job. And I'm turning 23. I was a baby, okay? A lot of responsibility for a 23-year-old, and I was starting to make a plan on how to leave when COVID hit. I don't know where you were at in life, but I was struggling with figuring out how to be a good Catholic, how to figure out to pay my loans, how to have a social life, how to have a happy life when COVID hit. And I remember the lockdown so vividly because I turned 23 March 6th, and I had made plans to go to Chicago with my friends the following weekend. But that's when the lockdown announcements were released, so I could never really celebrate my 23rd birthday in Chicago. I'm still waiting for that celebration to happen. Never happened, and it never will happen. Also, because COVID made everything so dangerous to handle from other people, I was cautious on how I handle my job because, again, I was receiving donations, and that can consist of clothing, random items. You never really know. And so I was like, I don't want to touch all these random things. Like, I didn't even want to deal with it. So I was like, can we like do something where I can focus more on the eBay sales, because we would resell things online, and then my other co-coordinator could be at the donation center. They did not like that, but I kind of forced them to. And there was just like rising tension with the director. But I was like, if I'm the coordinator, I should be able to make the decision of how to like divide the work and where to go and how to do it. But the director just saw me as a kid. She would literally call me kid. I was like, what? Why are you calling me a kid? Oh, the director was just not it. But I quit shortly after. I don't know if I'm like spilling too much information, but allegedly I had a phone call with the director of the entire Catholic Charities with my manager because she was saying that I wasn't working fast enough on eBay, and I was literally explaining to her that I was working at a sustainable pace and that it was realistic what I was doing and how I was doing it. She did not like that. I guess she wasn't expecting me to answer back to her, especially the power dynamics and my age. But I was like explaining, like, no, I can only upload this amount every day at this pace, and the profit's going to be this, and this is all I can do for now. But she just basically wanted to get me out. Basically, she was just done with me. But she started shutting me down on the phone, and even my mother heard the phone call because I was in the kitchen. And then my mother comes to me afterwards. She's like, well, what was that lady telling you? She was like counting down for you to shut up. And I was like, yeah, she was really like counting down. She was like 3, 2, 1. Afterwards, I was like, okay, well, thank you for your time. And then I hung up. So in that moment when she was counting down, I had decided to quit. Like, if you're not going to listen to my boundaries, and that I can only do this at a certain time frame and a certain quantity, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I can only work so fast. Like, if I tell you I can only have like 10 listings up a day, then why are you doubting it? But basically she had been telling me that I have to cover my own salary and I have to cover the center's expenses with what I make on eBay, which if I was only making $16 an hour plus the other costs, it was around $70K they were telling me to cover a year on eBay. But my entire internship the summer beforehand was to restart the business. How is I supposed to make a really big business out of nothing? It was a baby business. And how, if I could make my own wage on eBay for this Catholic Charities group, why wouldn't I just do it for myself? So I was like, how am I going to pay myself? Like, that was never in the contract. It was never in the agreement. But again, this is all alleged. All allegedly. Okay? Maybe this never even happened. Maybe I'm just lying to be dramatic. But I was just like, I don't know how to make $70K on eBay. If I did, I'd probably be doing eBay full time for myself. Also, the pressure of being 23 and having all this pressure, like, I was in charge of volunteers. I was in charge of a whole center. I was in charge of eBay. I was being told to rebuild this business and cover everything within a couple months. Like, I don't even think a seasoned corporate leader could raise that much money from reselling. If you're a reseller, is it possible to make $70K in like a couple months? Like, the business had been reborn a year beforehand, but like no one was consistently uploading. Like, I had just uploaded a lot during the summer, and what was being sold was from what I uploaded in the summer. Like, no one else was consistently uploading throughout the year when I was in my senior year before I got the job. So it was like this business was not set up to make $70K this fast. But this job really did expose me to resale and to nonprofit extraction. And they don't really reward morals, which really surprised me because their whole thing is about like religion and doing good and stuff. But they're very much like a corporation. Like, they really extract a lot of labor from their workers, or maybe even more work from their workers, because they're getting paid less and they're expected to do more. It's high stress because you're dealing with very serious things. There's a lot of like moral philosophy and ideologies to pressure you to work more. Like, do you really care? Do you really want to help these people? Then take on this, this, and this, and this. And you're like, I just want to be a good Catholic. I want to be a good person. Also, to reach social justice, you can't really do that when you're putting like quote unquote band-aids on things, because that's what I feel like nonprofit work is, just putting a band-aid to issues or like doing immediate fixes, but it's like not a long-term solution. So during the COVID lockdowns, I was unemployed, super confused, wondering why nonprofits treat you like this. Why would groups only pay you $300 when you simply want to help people? And then realizing maybe I need to get a job that pays well so I can start paying off my $40K, $1,000 in student loans. And that maybe I didn't want to live at home. Like, maybe I should have my own place, and that I wanted friends. But like, I've been so busy dealing with randos and weird calls from your boss that you haven't been able to focus on that. So I decided to join Sunrise Movement, which is a group that I had randomly Googled when I was studying or researching environmental justice. And I had seen that they had hubs across the nation and that there was a hub in Chicago. And I had never been able, I was never able to go when I was doing my year of service because I was so busy. Remember the 5:30 to 10 p.m. thing? So when I was finally living at home in my suburb, I was like, oh, I can still take the train to Chicago. It's like just an hour away. And I would get emails from them, so I was getting more encouraged to join. And then one time I got an email saying, you're invited to go to this online meeting showing you the interconnection of environmental justice with Latinos, like you should come. And I attended. It was a very informative hour and a half, I think. And they had a different session, and I went to that one. And then after the second one, they're like, if you want to be part of a cohort of leaders that are building out the Latino constituency efforts for this national movement, feel free to apply on this Google form or whatever. And I was curious. I was like, yeah, for sure. Like, I can try. Like, I'm not doing anything and I'm bored. Like, what else am I supposed to be doing? So I really became part of that. I grew those efforts. I was there for like 3 years and I was doing it unpaid. But I did grow a lot in learning how to organize people. And then I had also later on formed like fashion activism spaces on a national and global level. And then later on, I like co-founded a really powerful tenant union with some what I thought were friends. But honestly, most of these efforts did come with a lot of struggle and a lot of personal effort. It was a lot of volunteer hours, a lot of unpaid labor, which I now honestly do resent because I still owe $40,000 in student loans. And I honestly would say that how I got radicalized into activism was accidental. Like, I did join these, like constituency Latino meetings for this environmental justice group, but I didn't know what activism was. I didn't really want to be an organizer. Like, I was just kind of bored and curious. I remember the first couple times people asked me if I was, interested in like becoming a leader. I was like, no, like, I'm just researching what this means. Like, I'm just here to learn. And they're like, you're a leader, like you've been part of this for like 4 months now. I'm like, like I don't even see myself as an activist. But eventually I got more involved and they started seeing me as an activist, and I was like, am I an activist? Like, I just care about the planet. But yeah, I was learning a lot on the job. It was a lot of hours and hours and hours of researching and Googling stuff and being so confused on so many different things I'm not going to get into. But I was struggling, and one of those main struggles was my personality. Like, I'm very introverted, I'm very reflective. I'm someone that likes to take my time with things. I don't know what your personality type is, but I just struggle with people. I was even interested in minoring in social work in college, but I was like so against it because it was like going to be with people and I don't want to deal with people. And what I saw in social justice spaces is that a lot of people are very extroverted or acted as if they were extroverted, and then later on would tell me, yeah, like I get really tired after these meetings. I'm like, I swear to God, you were an extrovert. And there was a lot of like very fiery personalities. A lot of people were passionate, which I respected. But a lot of them were very impulsive or the quick thinkers. Like, they wanted answers now, or they needed to do things now, or they wanted to change the world now. They understood people, and they were honestly usually very persuasive. So it was hard to not engage in organizing when there was nothing else really going on, and I was too scared to pursue my own passions. But it was something that I didn't see myself staying in for a long time because I do have social anxiety, which has been unmedicated my whole life. So it did keep me away from like phone banking. It kept me away from like canvassing, which is when you go around and like knock at people's doors. Like, I don't even knock at my friend's door. Like, how am I gonna knock at strangers' doors? I would avoid negotiations. I would avoid tensions within group dynamics, which were often the case when we were trying to like come up with decisions. But I always felt like my explanations of having social anxiety felt perceived as an excuse, or of like laziness, or of not wanting to like step up in midst of like intense campaigns and like visions. I think it's really easy to push away like mental health issues when you look neurotypical and you look put together on the outside. But I've always just loved fashion, and I have always tried to be professional no matter if I'm like with friends, just because I struggle with social settings and I just like resort to like put together, eloquent, and just like contained, I guess. Like, I don't do small talk, so it was just hard for me to tell people like, no, I'm like actually struggling more than you think. But I would be like, hey, like I have social anxiety, so I can't do this and this and this. But I don't really think they believed me based on perceptions or based on an idea that I was making excuses. I don't know. But often enough, they'd be like, they would insinuate that I was making excuses. So I guess they didn't believe me. But that's their fault, not mine. But yeah, it was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of high stakes in activism all the time. it was stressful because of that. And I didn't really care about that. It's just, if you're up to the challenge, it can be really fruitful. But for me, it was draining and it left me feeling empty. And it actually caused a lot of depressive episodes because I was like, I'm not built for this. Like, I can't do this. And everyone needs me. Yeah, I can't step up. So I would just really feel so bad about myself. But I'm not built for that sort of work. I do deeply care about these issues, and I will continue to care, and I will continue to advocate. But canvassing and phone banking and like negotiations are not something that I'm built for. And I feel like that's why roles are so important for those that are in activist spaces, because I've been the one that always gravitates towards like creative things, like communications, like blogs and social media and TikToks and the branding of things. I've always been a straight A student, but I've always been super introverted and just want to be behind scenes. Like, I don't want to be in the forefront. And to organize people and to basically organize politicians to do what you want, you have to have a knack for it, an interest for it, and be very, very good with your words and with people and catch the subtleties of things. And I have like neurodivergence, I have touches of ADHD, I have anxiety, I have a bit of OCD in me. Like, it's all unmedicated, okay? So I was not the person to do this. I was not the person to step up in really high stakes situations, and I'm still not. So yeah, I never really felt connected to things because that's like the majority of what you do with your time. I can say that I was an accidental activist. I was very successful because I forced myself into comms roles. I became like the blog coordinator. I became in charge of the social media efforts. I became part of the rebrand efforts. I became part of like the narrative work. Like, that's how I thrived, and I literally had to convince people to put me in those roles because that was the only way I could actually stay there. But yeah, there's only so much you can do as a neurodivergent Latina who's low income. And I'm also from a frontline community. And if you know anything about me, is that I'm very honest and I'm very direct. And that doesn't really work well in professional settings, which is something else I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but like within professional settings, like at a 9 to 5, you're expected to have like this corporate personality, say the right thing, say the proper, terms, like I'll circle back, and all the BS words they use. But I've always been too straightforward. And with social justice spaces, it's like this weird mix of like corporate and like personal, where like you need to be like put together and controlled and like say the right things, I guess. And that depends on like the group culture. Like, every group is going to be different, so they're expecting certain slang words and certain tonalities. So within the environmental justice group I was in, it was a white dominated environmental space, which is fairly common. So they used a lot of corporate jargon and corporate wording. We also had to be more white sounding, if that makes sense. So like, we had to put on the white accent and like be very cutesy with our words and like have this said this way and like roll your like throat, not your R's, your throat. You know how they go like rawr, like, now we're going, yeah, like that sort of thing. And I would find myself doing that a lot, but naturally I'm like, let's get to the fucking point, you know what I mean? So that didn't really work out well, but they still wanted you to be personal in some way, like share things, but don't share things too much. Like, we hate the system, but don't hate it too much. Like, we can hate the structure of this, but we have to say it in a nice way, sort of thing. And I just didn't understand that. But working 30 hours for free at these sort of spaces that were white-led was honestly, like, for me, very bad for my mental health, because like, I wasn't making money and I was doing this for like 3 years. Somehow I was doing this for 3 years. I ended up really caring about this topic, especially because I was raised in a frontline city and I was in a frontline city. But when you're in white-led environmental justice spaces, it just ended up exploiting me and making me feel guilty for leaving and for voicing my concerns, especially when you're building out like Latino efforts that can help the whole nation. But I'm not trying to dwell. It's just like, for me now, the way my personality thrives and what I want to be doing with my life is to stay on YouTube, to stay on my blog, to focus on ethical fashion. I think it'll actually really allow me to stay connected with others while working for my financial stability, for my mental stability, work on my own time, on my own schedule, like help me build my legacy for myself, where I can control the narrative, where I control the creative direction, where I have my own space to voice my thoughts without being controlled or being told like that's not worthy of our time. Another perk is I have like weeks and weeks and weeks to work on projects. Like I can move on from thing to thing, which I really love because I have a spontaneous mind and I don't like to stay on the same thing for too long. And I like the ability to learn and try new things. I love the idea of financial stability through my sustainable fashion work, specifically eBay and my collections that I'm having come out soon in the next year. And then just like learning skills like editing and filming. And you don't really have the ability to do these things in a typical 9-to-5. And with the past job scenarios that I've had, it's like I literally never had any time to follow my own interests. Like I always known that I want to do my own blog. I've always known I want to do my YouTube. It's just like when you don't have people paying you a fair wage or giving you time to relax, it's impossible, literally impossible to pursue what you really, really love in life. And when I was organizing with this environmental justice group for like 3 years, basically throughout the lockdown of COVID, I would be doing this while working part-time jobs. So I would go to my part-time job at like 9, get out at like 2, quickly shower, and I had meetings from like 3 to 7. So by 7, I was tired, so I would take a nap, and by that point, it was 8. So when was I actually going to work on my stuff if I have to wake up the next day by 6? You know what I mean? So it was just a lot for me to handle. I really think that my sense of strong morality, my sense of like wanting to be myself, of having my own schedule is not going to work well in corporate America or in nonprofits, but that's just who I am naturally. Like I'm currently looking for a 9-to-5. Like I need a 9-to-5 to make money. I think top of mind is like financial instability will be a guarantee if activist spaces and nonprofits and groups don't pay a living wage. Like I think it's their responsibility to ensure that those that want to do good are paid good. Like just because we want to do good in life doesn't justify that we're going to be exploited ourselves. Like no one should be working full time and only getting paid $300. That's basically slave labor. It's also the same thing with like internships where they can be like, oh, we're looking for a full-time intern, but we'll only pay you a certain stipend. It happened to me once when I was in Wisconsin and I was like, why are you guys only paying me $1,000 for 40 hours of work? It was at an alpaca farm in Wisconsin, and they're like, well, interns are not workers, so they're not subject to legal protection. Like, you're a volunteer. And I was like, so I'm a volunteer, so I don't have to work the full-time hours. And they're like, well, you signed a contract, so you have to do it because they signed a contract. And I was like, do I? But basically, they make you sign this thing so they can ensure that you're there the whole day, but don't have to pay you wages of a staff member. And I was like, what? And then I quit and they were like, what about the contract? I'm like, it's not legally binding, is it? Like, you're going to sue me for not wanting to volunteer anymore? That's basically why they let me go, because they knew they would not be able to take me to court because I was a volunteer. Anyways, another bad experience, but really, like, truly, we need to start paying people like minimum like $25 an hour. Like that should be the standard national minimum wage. Things are so expensive. Like housing is just, oh my god, scary. Like even to rent a place, minimum $1,000. You want your own studio, probably gonna be like $1,500. And if you're not even making $16 an hour, how are you even gonna eat? Like 16 is not enough. Some people are being paid minimum wage like $14. I recently quit a part-time receptionist job at a gym, and it was like 20 hours a week, paid $14.25. How much did I make in a month? $800. Who is going to survive off of $800 a month? Minimum wage cannot be $14 or less. It has to be $25, especially with all this price gouging. A sandwich will cost you like $7 at 12 p.m. during lunch hour, but at like 2 o'clock it's going to be $4 because there's less demand. Like, what is happening? What is happening? And we're not even being paid a living wage. What? I just don't get it. So honestly, it's been a super long journey though to get to these realizations. And I think that's the true radicalization for me, that we need safe and dignified life. No matter if you want to be a good activist, a good Catholic, a good worker, we need enough money to survive. Our current economic system is only keeping us into cycles of poverty where we're relying on credit cards to pay our groceries, which is not okay. It's been a long journey, okay? But like, work is work, and I think we all recognize that. Like, we all have to work. It's just we really need to survive off of it, and we need resources to like have good mental health, to have a good life, to have emotional support. Like, a lot of the things I was asking in my journey of activism was mental and emotional support. And I never got that. If I don't have insurance, how am I going to go to a therapist? If I don't have a friend support, then how am I going to keep, volunteering? Like, we need inspiration, we need motivation, we need connection. And so I think I'm just going to have to make consistent daily decisions and how best to thrive in very messed up scenarios and situations. Like, we do still have to fight the good fight. Like, we still need to work towards like addressing systemic issues, but systems of accountability truly do lack, not only on a governmental level, but also micro level, such as social justice spaces, because nonprofit work and social justice work cannot rely on the extraction of low-income, marginalized leaders like me, who have taken up a lot of responsibility, who try to gain the respect and authority and dignity they inherently need and should be worthy of. I don't have to prove myself to get a wage. I don't need to prove myself to get positions where I can like be thriving in society. I feel like everyone needs safe housing. I think everyone deserves a good job. I think everyone deserves access to health insurance so they can get access to like therapists and like physicians and all these other things. So again, I do not want us to rely on the extraction of Black and brown labor. That's the only thing that I'm truly mad about, that people extracted me and my labor. I will never get over the fact that people will justify paying you $300 or $500 a month for full-time work. It's not ethical. It's not justified, and it just adds more stress and more pressure for those already struggling at the forefront of social and environmental issues. And it keeps people like me in cycles of poverty and injustices, because I don't have a job right now. I'm $40,000 in student loans, and I'm fighting for a chance in this current job market. But my final thoughts is that we all need fair wages. We all need opportunities. And we need safeguards to protect our rights and systems to support our growth, which are often, though, built to keep us down. And there's a lot to lose if we don't step up in environmental and social justice issues. But if they operate within the same systems that keep Black and brown people down, it's just hard. It's just a hard thing. There's capitalism, there's colonialism entrenched in social justice groups and environmental justice groups. So I don't have all the answers on how to do this. For now, at least, I'm not returning to organizing. I think a lot of damage has been done, and I'm trying not to be resentful. I'm trying to work towards justice in my own way, to heal in my own way, to build myself up financially and emotionally and spiritually in my own way. And if I ever do return, it's going to be to grassroots organizing that is not attached to any legal entity. So it's not like a registered nonprofit or registered group of any sort, or that have corporate ties, which is rare to find nowadays. And you'll probably find me working full time, having my own personal life. I want to be healthy and sustainable. I want to prioritize therapy and all these other projects I've never had time to do my whole life. Again, I think if I will take on a lot of responsibility, it's only going to be paid labor. Also, just a reminder that resistance to oppressive systems is a daily act. It's not strictly affiliated or connected to being part of an organization or nonprofit work or volunteering at certain times or frames. Like, a lot of things are daily resistance. So no matter where you're at in your journey, no matter if you disagree with me, it's okay. Like, personally though, my journey has really defeated me and has extracted a lot from me. But I want to be in a better place. I think I am in a better place since I was 22. I'm 27 now. Currently just rebuilding life, keeping hope, finding my happiness, doing what matters to me, because like it's so weird to relax in the evenings. It honestly is. Like I relax for about like 2 or 3 hours, like from like 7 to 10, and it feels so weird because I used to work all day, every day for the past like 4 years, almost 5 years now. Yeah, 5 years. It's been 5 years. Even doing laundry during the week feels like a luxury. Isn't that crazy? I didn't even have time to do my laundry during the week. So yeah, I'm going to be working on my vision board for next year. Let me know if you have a vision board. I'm going to be working hard to accomplish all the things. And I know it's going to take effort and focus, but I'm going to continue fighting for liberation and social good my own way via my YouTube and my blog and my fashion work. And I'm going to start removing myself more consistently away from the things that don't align with my greatest good. And hopefully you do the same for yourself. I want to see you happy. I want to see you thrive as well. And again, we can all resist in our own way. And I think finding personal happiness as a low-income Latina in a frontline city is truly radical. Finding joy in all the chaos is radical. Finding a future in a world that feels so bleak is radical. And stepping away to heal is radical. So even if people do disagree, it's okay. But your opinion does not mean that I have to live differently. I would say let's radicalize the most privileged white people to step up and do things with their life because they've been complacent for so long. You shouldn't pressure those at the forefront of environmental and social issues to step up for them. So this has been a really intense podcast, but I just, again, needed it to be out there into the wild. There's a lot of other jobs that extracted my labor and did a lot of dirty things to me. It's built up my resume, but I really don't need those sort of things in my life anymore. I don't need to talk about them. But my time in these sort of spaces and conversations are just not fulfilling and not needed for my mental health and my own ability to move forward from all my past struggles. So yeah, hopefully you understand. If not, that's okay. But until next time, we'll go back to ethical fashion and intersectional solutions to it and for sustainable, positive ways forward. Until next time, peace and love. Bye.